Hi, I'm Anna Maria Pittella, and I'm here to talk to you about something that you probably don't know about. I'm an attorney and a collaborative attorney and a mediator. And what I've passed out to you is pictures, because pictures say a lot. You know the old expression, they're worth 1,000 words. So you can see the first picture is basically a couple, and there's a little girl in the background, and you can see by her expression that she is not a very happy camper. And that is unfortunately what's happening in household after household when a couple is arguing and maybe on the path to divorce. The bottom line is, if that continues, this child is going to walk away with pictures in her mind, like framed art, of all the negative events that she's heard or witnessed through her entire life. So by the time she's in her 20s, she'll be talking about it in college. When she's in her 30s, she'll be talking about it in cocktail parties, and it'll be something that haunts her for the rest of her life. So my goal is to try and help children by helping people focus on what their children need in a difficult process such as divorce and separation. Any of you, I'm sure, have heard or had contact with people who are going through divorce. And I can't imagine that any of you think that it is a happy situation. Most of the people that describe it will use very negative terms. It's horrible, it's ugly, it's expensive, it takes too long, I hate him, I hate her, I never want to see their faces again. And those are the kinds of things you hear over and over again. And I'm not going to stand here and tell you that divorce is beautiful, because it's not. It's a very difficult time and a very difficult situation, but sometimes it's unavoidable. But you have choices, and the important thing is to know that you have choices. And for anybody that hears of someone that's getting a divorce, the important thing is to let them know that they shouldn't assume there's only one way to get a divorce, because that's absolutely not true. If you look on page 2, it gives you basically just a quick term to associate with divorce. So do it yourself. A couple can sit at a kitchen table and they can sit there and write out what they think are important to them and fashion it into a final agreement. That happens. It really does happen. There's nothing wrong with it, but the only thing is you don't know what you don't know. So you could leave out something very important that's going to create havoc later down the line. So if you know people who can do that sort of thing, that's great. Have the conversation, but by all means have it at least reviewed by an attorney so you can make sure that important provisions are not left out. There's structured mediation, where you work with a professional mediator. That's somebody who's been hopefully trained in mediation process. The quirky thing in New Jersey is that there is no licensing for a mediator. Anybody can hang up a shingle and say, I mediate, and haha, they're a mediator. Pretty scary stuff, right? So typically a mediator needs at least 40 hours of training, and I think in my mind that's a basic, and from there on in it's how much more can they actually engage in to become skilled at this, because it is very unique in terms of what you have to do in working with couples. I've done a 40-hour apprenticeship besides the 40-hour basic, and I go to training every year, and I've been doing that since 1997. So I think people need to know that there's a lot to it. It's not just a snap, I think I'm a mediator because I can handle affairs. I had somebody tell me once, well, you know, I used to always be the person in my household. I think they were a middle child, and I could work out all the problems. Like, well, that's great, but do you really want to be handling somebody's divorce with that kind of qualification? I think it takes a little bit more. And then there's divorce in court, which is litigation, family court hearing. The misconception there is that you will go in front of a judge immediately, and you will get a decision immediately. And that just never happens. The reality of it is, when you file a complaint for divorce, you probably won't see a judge maybe for 3 to 4 months if you're lucky, and in most cases maybe another 6 to 9 months. And even then, the first thing you're going to hear out of that judge's mouth is, you people should really settle your differences. So you've spent all this time basically generally paying attorney's fees and exchanging all kinds of documents, and you're no further along than when you were when you started the process. So then you get to collaborative process. That's essentially something that's new and unique in New Jersey. It's only been around since 2014. It's based on a statute. I was involved with the passage of that statute, so I'm really proud to have been able to bring it to families in New Jersey. And it allows a couple to commit to a process in a writing signed by their respective attorneys whereby they will settle their differences away from the courthouse. It's a commitment not to litigate. So the couple hire attorneys just to negotiate their agreement. The attorneys are generally formerly litigators because that's how we all start out, all who have seen that it's better to do it this way than that way. And the couple has the benefit of using other professionals to support them as they're trying to make decisions about their lives. So it's not just the two attorneys, it's a mental health professional and a financial professional, because those are really the three pieces of any divorce. And you don't get that in the courthouse. It's not a situation where a judge is going to pull a therapist in to help people control their emotions. If they're going to do anything, they're going to sanction people for acting in an inappropriate way. They're not going to try and get to the root of the problem. What we're trying to do is temper those emotions so that we can be productive in a meeting and people can reach a resolution for the issues that they're bringing to the table. People immediately say, well, you got two attorneys, and then you got a financial person, and then you've got a mental health person. God, how much is this going to cost? All right, so if you turn to the next page, this is what a litigated divorce looks like. Right, chaos, isn't it?
Chart, flow chart.
That one right there, all right? That is chaos. It's anarchy. It is scorched earth by the time it's all said and done. So when you start till you get to the end, you have spent tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, to get a judge to issue your case, to issue a decision on your case. If you're going through a collaborative process, it'll be anywhere from 1/3 to 50% less, and you'll have people that are actually structured to have the discussions with you to help you make decisions. Judges don't do that. So, yeah, is it expensive? Sure, of course. Divorce is expensive. People spend tons of money on weddings. That's a decision that people make. Unfortunately, you're going to spend money on a divorce too. Think about it though. When you get married, how many people have a lot of stuff or kids? They probably maybe have an apartment together. That's about the size of it. You go through a marriage, 5 years, 10 years, whatever. 2 kids, 3 kids, a house, 2 cars, a vacation home, bank accounts, brokerage accounts, what do you call it, 401ks and pensions. That's a lot to untangle. It can't possibly be done in a snap. So you need people who are going to help you make good decisions about those things because there is a future after divorce. It's not a matter of divorce happening and then it's over. There's a lot more that has to be done. And unfortunately, that's what happens in litigation. You get a decision and you got to live with it. Even if you have a negotiated agreement sometimes where you haven't had a mental health professional or a financial professional help you, you're kind of left at the edge of a cliff and you got to go figure it out from there. Working with a mental health professional, you might be able to have continued therapy or counseling with, for your kids' sake. You can have someone who's going to help you build a financial future with the money that you receive in the distribution. So it's got a lot more focused on the future. So the commitment in a collaborative process is basically that you're not going to go to court, that you're going to use 2 attorneys that are only going to focus on that. You're going to have other professionals that are basically going to work with you to support you. And that's one way of cost cutting, because if you're not working with attorneys who generally charge the most, you're working with a financial professional or a mental health professional. So you can scatter your, you can use your resources to scatter the issues among the people who are going to help the most. Everything's going to be transparent because the commitment that you're making is one that you are going to bring all the information to the table. And if you don't, then this is going to fail. And you are going to wind up in court, which is the very place you're trying to avoid. And the bottom line is you're going to reach an agreement, hopefully a peace agreement, which means that you're going to have one that's going to be durable and it's going to be something that you can live with for many, many years. And if you don't, collaborative process always welcomes you back. So it's not a situation where it's one and done. You can come back and we can help you from there on in. There's an explanation in this in terms of all the people that are involved, but the bottom line is that everybody here is neutral. Even the two attorneys are only there to help the family. They're not there just to protect and intimidate the others, protect one spouse and intimidate the other spouse. The bottom line is that we're looking at the whole picture in terms of what the family needs for themselves in the future. So, my hope is that people, by hearing about this process, when they hear of someone who has a divorce or is thinking about a divorce, that they offer this as a suggestion to explore before they move into something that they're going to regret. I don't know anybody that's ever said litigation is great, can't wait to do it again. So, thank you for your help, and I appreciate your passing the word on.
This is good. I have a question for you. So basically, in the collaborative process, so you as the attorney, you're sort of like the general contractor. In other words, you may be working with the financial person, the coach, and the child specialist, whatever, but you're the one that's pulling the strings there.
We create the structure.
Yeah.
So essentially, a couple would decide to go into a collaborative divorce. The two attorneys would meet with the couple, and then we sit and talk about what is this going to look like, what are you going to need, what are your goals, how are we going to best meet those needs, and then we bring in the people that we think would suit them best.
So two, for lack of a better word, opposing attorneys.
Never opposing. Colleagues, collaborative colleagues.
Okay, but the husband and wife are opposing each other. But I'm saying, even though there were two attorneys, you don't each make your own teams of these.
No.
That's what I'm saying.
It's for the entire family.
And both attorneys have to agree on who that financial. In other words, like you're picking a jury, you have to decide who that person is. It has to be palatable to the both parties, right?
Right. Well, it's not so much palatable because most of the time they're coming to us because they trust us in this process, and they're going to look to our recommendation as to who we think is best fit for them.
But no, what I'm saying, it has to be palatable to both attorneys. Like the wife's attorney may say, "Listen, I got this great financial guy, and you may not want that person for whatever reason."
Yeah, and I would say that.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. It's a very open, transparent process. So if I have a problem with someone, I would share that with my colleague. Yeah. And vice versa, and we would come up with somebody who we think would work best.
And my last question is this other thing here. This makes my hair hurt by looking at this thing. Here's the question: why, if two people they've gone through all this stuff, the lawyers, they've got everything is done, you go to court. Why is there that wait? Why is it so long? Is it because there were just so many cases?
Because most people don't come to court with an agreement. Most people come to court because they file the paperwork to get the divorce, quote unquote, because they think that's the end.
Okay.
It's really the beginning. Yeah. So until everything is resolved, they're preparing for a trial.
But it seems to me that mediation should be like the law of the land. I mean, why would anybody want to go through it any other way of separating?
So just the difference between mediation and collaboration.
Mediation, you work with one professional who basically is the neutral. Can't give legal advice.
Right.
So you're there basically to facilitate the dialogue between the couple.
And then you each have their own attorney who looks it over afterward, and it could either blow up or...
If they get attorneys. Some people don't even get attorneys.
Right. Okay. But with mediation, each person brings their own attorney, or they come to...
They don't come to the mediation generally with attorneys. Okay. They usually have them as review attorneys after the fact. Okay. So depending on who you go to, if you go to an attorney who only litigates, it's not generally the best support system for getting a mediated agreement through.
Yeah. Because I see where that's a problem, because sometimes you go through this and then, you hire an attorney who your so-and-so tells you to hire because they think they're your advocate, and all of a sudden they look at everything you did and go, I could do better.
Well, that's why the collaborative process is better, because you've got the two attorneys right there. We're having discussions right then and there about what's happening and what's good, what's not good, what are things that might work, might not work. So we don't review it again. It's done when it's done.
So how do you make it legal and binding? How does that work?
The agreement is signed. Legally binding contract.
That seems like such a healthier, less stressful way to go about doing it.
And depending on the situation, for each one.
Just degrees of it too, right? I mean, if one spouse is kind of like, all right, whatever they want to do.
And if they don't follow through, then they can.
No, I wish that were true.
A lot of them that don't happen that way, right? I'm sure they're very. They're getting divorced because they can't get along.
The same people that are going down to the courthouse to get a divorce are the same people that are coming through mediation and collaboration. So it's not that we get special couples. the beauty of a collaborative process is being able to match other professionals so we can get all of their issues addressed. So if we have a highly volatile client, having a strong mental health professional is key in terms of keeping it focused on what we need to do. If you go down to the courthouse, all that does is fire and brimstone.
I have one. I said this, but I have one last question. So, not all
This is really your last one.
not all family law attorneys can do this. Correct?
Well, the statute we have doesn't say that it's required, that you're even required to be collaboratively trained. Big mistake in my mind. Big mistake, because it's a total different animal than what most attorneys are prepared to do.
Because if a couple or one or the other goes to any family law attorney with a good reputation, if that person is not trained as you are, they're really never going to recommend to that client or potential client, listen, there's another way to go about this. If they themselves can't do it, am I wrong?
It's not necessarily that. What more than likely will happen is that they say, oh, I'm collaborative.
Oh.
Yeah.
But they're really not providing the process that we're trying to get people to understand.
You should try to get a segment on Channel 12 News, because this is like
Yes.
2014. Like this is like a lot of PR that you could do for yourself because it's so new and you're such an expert in it.
Yeah, this
You
is
know?
an eye-opener.
Yeah.
Well, we our council is trying to get those sorts of events scheduled, so it hasn't been scheduled yet, but they're working on that.
Right.
Public awareness is big, obviously, really big.
That was great.
Yeah, this is very
Thank
good.
you.